This week on the Manga Bums podcast, we talk about Kaiji Part 2. Yes, just Part 2. Probably. There's a lot to talk about. Alright, we're back again. This week we're talking about Kaiji Part 2, as I said. For some reason there's a lot of echo on your mic this week, Rinshan. Like, a lot.
Oh my god, I'm gonna try to pull it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, it's nice to be back. Thank you everybody for listening. I'm gonna try to do something about the mic. Maybe just put it on my shirt or something. I don't know.
On
Sorry,
your shirt
sorry
or
about
something.
the echo.
Yeah, just like bring it away from the speakers or something. But anyway,
Yeah.
this is very unprofessional. we'll work these problems out for future episodes. But anyway, how you doing? Well, I say how you doing, but I know how you're doing. You're a bit under the weather, aren't you? Or should I have even said that?
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's how it is. I'm a little bit sick. I have something with my stomach. That's why there's no releases from Lion Ridge lately. I'm feeling already better. But that's not the point. The point is Kaiji. Why we
Yeah,
love it? Why it's so great? Part two, in my opinion, the best part. You might disagree.
I don't know if I disagree. Um, it's hard to say, really. I love part 5. Part 5 is really cool. Um,
Part five was with Aja and Kaiji
well,
facing
yeah,
off.
one poker.
Oh yeah. Part five also. I love it. I love it
Yeah,
as
but I
well.
mean,
Yeah.
it part 5 is just cool because it has so many twists and turns and stuff. But if you're talking about like real philosophy and like real world applicable like thoughts that like you can like really relate to, like there's some of it in part 1, but it really gets heavy in part 2, I would say. So
Uh, before I answer, is it better now with the echo?
a little better, yeah.
Okay. I just turned the volume down. Sorry, guys. We are still
Yeah,
learning, and
you
it's
know, I
gonna
should
get
have
better.
freaking we should have tested this out a little bit before. We always do
Yeah.
like a little short warm up talk before we go live, but for some reason it just wasn't as bad then or something. But yeah, like as soon as I started doing the intro, it just all like came back right directly in my ears, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is happening now." But
So
anyway,
I turned the volume down. Was it better in the last like 20 seconds?
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I might
Okay.
just
So
buy
we
you a
can.
new mic at this point, Rinshan.
Yeah,
I feel
I
like you really
definitely
need
need
one.
it. I definitely need a better mic than speaking into a webcam. It's
Yes.
it, yeah. But sorry for all that discretion. We're going to talk about kaiju right now. And in the last episode, we talked kaiji versus Squid Game. There's no Squid Game going to be tonight. We're just going to talk about kaiji pure. Even mention part one a little bit. Um,
Yeah. Is there any way you can so how's your webcam situated right now?
It's in my mouth.
It's in your mouth?
I'm holding it in front of my mouth, trying to keep it
Okay,
away
that's a
from
bit
the
too much.
speaker.
It's kind of like distorted now. Um I don't know what you could
Should
really
should
do.
I
Like just how did you have it like the last 2 weeks? It was fine the last 2 weeks. Could you like just try and replicate whatever you did there?
like this? Is this good?
I think so. So far.
Okay. So let let let's 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 jump into Kaiji.
Yes, let's do.
we talked all about Kaiji and why you get why you got like mesmerized by it, I guess,
Mesmerize,
the
yeah.
last week. Um,
Right. Because Kaiju's
Today we're
just such
gonna
a
break it
lovable
down.
character.
Yeah, we're gonna break it down. First of all, we're not gonna talk about part one too much because we already covered it in the Squid Game discussion. I would like to jump into part two right away.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're here for.
I,
So,
I yeah, I think it's brilliant the way the show pulled it off because it managed to show like it managed to bring Kaiji into a new situation and everything was like already um like the underground stuff. Okay,
right.
we know why he went there, but it managed to like bring in a clear new way of looking at everything because
Right.
everything was like reset. It was a
I
big
I think
reset.
I think before we go into that, we need to talk about like how part 1 ended and like the expectation going out of part 1 was like, "Oh, Kaiji lost to Hyoudou. He swears vengeance on Hyoudou." Part 2 is going to be, Kaiji freaking like rising the ranks of Tei, maybe infiltrating Tei, going to face Hyodo down. But no, it's like it's more realistic than that. It's like Kaiji, he freaking got his fingers reattached. He had the hospital bills from that, so he's in a ton of debt. So like he naturally just gets sent down to where he would have been if he lost in on the Espoir anyway, which is the underground work camp. So it's kind of like
What's interesting what's interesting it like they didn't like there wasn't some yakuza or some big guys like just taking him to the underground. First he was like free.
right,
He even showed off like his hand to the guys who tried to like get his money or
right,
something.
mug
And
him, yeah,
yeah, and it's already different because Endo saw him, and Kaiji was glad that he met Endo again. And he was like, "Give me one more game. Give me a game."
yeah. Oh, okay. So I don't actually remember that part too well. So like, how did that go down again? It's like Endo came up to him and
Endo was like driving, like he was in a car. Kaiji was just like passing by. He was just like walking on the streets, and he saw him, and then he like talked to him, and Endo was more worried about his debt and the way he's gonna pay off the debt. But Kaiji was like really happy to see him, just because
yeah,
he has
just like,
another
oh
chance
hey,
to
you're
play
gonna
again.
you're gonna let me
Yeah,
gamble again, right? I want to beat that Hyodo guy.
yeah,
Endo's like, sorry, bud, you got some debt there. I'm gonna have to take you away. So
yeah.
it's
And then and in the car, I don't know if they pulled some like sleeping potion or whatever, but
sleeping potion, sleeping gas,
he was
probably.
taken away to the ground. Yeah, something
Yeah,
like that. And he was like, uh, he ended up in the underground, and that's why it's what I like about Part Two because it resets everything. Because now he's in a completely desperate new environment, and it's any game which would be introduced was going to be fresh because he's not in the real world anymore.
right.
He's in
And
a
it kind of is almost like, should he even be gambling right now? Like it's kind of like it's not even like the gambling is the focus of that part. It's kind of just like the situation that he's in, the freaking hellish situation of the work labor camp, which I'm so thinking about it now, I'm so glad we got to see. It was very important for us to see what actually goes on down there because it says so much about Tei's process and like what they put, how they value human life and like what they're willing to do to make their money, like what they're willing to put people through and all
yeah,
that.
but even though they're like little slaves, they're slaves. They're working their ass off like maybe even 12, 13 hours a day. There's
Yeah,
still like a system. It still looks like like a workplace with a dead end job. It still
Right.
feels like it.
Hmm. Yeah, so
So
you yeah,
there's
and you can relate to that.
yeah, it's not like just people are like thrown into being slaves. It's like there's still a system.
Right.
There's still rules, and
Yeah, they still
um,
earn money. It's not like they're like just literally working for free. They're still work and there's still that like looming like promise of like if you earn enough money then you'll get out one day. And that kind of almost motivates them to put up with the like hellish conditions that they're working through. Just that promise of like if you work hard enough you can get out of here, which is kind of
yeah,
almost
and
like the
that's
same kind of motivation we have in the real world. It's just kind of like
yeah,
it's there's a microscope being put on it in in that part of Kaiji.
yeah, it's like every company, like you have the feeling that you can make it, you can improve, that you can like somehow show that you're like really working hard, but in the end, it's the ass kisser who makes it, and and that's also portrayed here with Ohtsuki. But before we talk about Ohtsuki, um, it's just like great, like seeing this environment that I think most of people have experienced in their life in some way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, and Otsuki is an interesting character too, isn't he? Like just he's very like kind of conniving, and he always has that kind of like fox smile on him, almost like a Cheshire cat kind of smile. That kind of is just like like on the surface he's kind of like warm and friendly, but he has ulterior motives deep down.
Yes, definitely. I just want to say the way he's like portrayed in the anime, the voice actor, the drawing of him, the colors, everything is like perfect because I think everybody knows an Otsuki in his real life, um,
Yeah.
and you can just see how some kind of person would be like that, and then you like see Kaiji and you think like, okay, I'm Kaiji in this situation, and and everything that which is revealed about Otsuki throughout the first part of the second part makes so much sense. He he he's so oh god he's so like appearing to be a good guy, a
Hmm.
manager,
Right.
but he's just thinking about himself.
Yeah, and
He isn't really caring about
he's essentially he's manipulating everybody around him at the same time. There's so many people like that in real life that they like they're friendly to you on the surface, but they want something deep down. They're doing everything just to make you like them so that you'll give them something. And that type of person is just so prevalent in today's society, and it's really important to recognize it and understand that that type of person really exists, and like you can't ignore it. You can't like just pretend it doesn't exist because it does. And it's
yeah, and he's basically like abusing the workers by selling them hope or dreams.
yes.
He's there's this poster about get this, you will get so much money and you can get out. And he's selling that, and he's a complete asshole, totally like the worst kind of person. Um,
Yeah.
and that's what makes you like root for Kaiji so much.
Right. And yeah, and I guess it's kind of also the fact that he's the one who's organizing the gambling too. Like it's not enough that he is like, manipulating everybody like, taking half their paycheck because, they're well, okay, that comes from the gambling, doesn't it? But he's like he's kind of like he's like manipulating everybody, but he's also like taking even more from them by like cheating at the only freaking source of fun they have, which is playing dice. You know, they're just doing that as a little escape to freaking like get away from their horrible life, but he's even taking advantage of that and like getting even more money from that and putting them further in debt to him just also he can get all of the money. And it's just so despicable the way that he operates. And it just he's
Yeah,
he's a great villain in that sense because you really root for Kaiji, and the strategies that he comes up with are brilliant to defeat Ohtsuki.
Exactly, and the best part is that Ohtsuki uses his like position and entices Kaiji like have some beer, like he like convinces him like here have some beer, like you need to relax. That's all part of his plan. Like he planned out every single thing. Like first let's make them waste money, then let's like just use my power to like uh, convince them to get into debt to play a gamble,
Right.
and he's always smiling. Like this smile of Ohtsuki is just so
Yeah, it's a complete fox smile. It's a complete like
yeah.
devilish grin almost, just like a mask that he wears to hide his true emotions. Do you remember why Otsuki needed 20 million Perikas in the first place? Uh,
Yeah, I
Kyoto Sad
rewatched part
asked.
one. Yeah, even though I rewatched like the show a few days ago, I actually don't.
Yeah, it was never
It,
mentioned, right? He's just greedy. He's just greedy. I guess he well, wasn't it like he needed like to get that like 1 day pass and he wanted to like get like 3 months worth of 1 day passes or something so that he could just like have a huge vacation or something like that.
yeah, but he had like this big box of money, Pedica or whatever. But I don't think he was desperate for money because he was making it every um, other night with the gambles.
Right.
I don't see him desperate for money.
He wasn't. He had so much. He could probably um he could probably
Like
like at that point, why don't you
I
just like
seem
buy
I
your
seem
freedom? why why bother with the like 1 day passes at that point?
I seem like being a complete part of the whole system. So I seem like being able to convince his boss or somebody to let him out.
Hmm.
I just like maybe he's like very like sadistic and just enjoys like taking money from people. But I might be wrong because other people are saying that he wanted to also go on the vacation, so I might be wrong. It's just what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I remember something about him wanting to buy because that is the whole spin-off manga, right? Of him of like what would happen if Otsuki actually like got like however many months worth of 1 day passes and like went out into the real world, like what would he do with his freedom, you know? Um which I don't even really want to know. Honestly, that's why I've never read it because I don't like Otsuki and I frankly don't care what he would do. But I don't know, that's the premise of that manga. Um
Maybe the reason I didn't maybe saw that detail is because I always saw him like somebody sucking up to the
yeah.
system of so I always thought of him like somebody who was gonna try to make his way up in the system. Um, I never thought about his motivations about going out, honestly.
Hmm.
So I'm a little bit,
It might
I'm a
not have
little
been
bit,
like a big focus of the anime. I have to like because I remember something about that and I read the manga first. Like I was reading the manga chapters like as they were being scanlated, like week to week or not even week to week. Sometimes it was like, there'd be like a month in between chapters, but I remember something about like Otsuki needing to like get like 1 day passes, like a bunch of them. Something like that. But in
yeah,
any
yeah,
case, it doesn't really matter. Like he's just greedy. Like that's all that really matters. And the fact that we see this kind of character that's just so willing to manipulate the kind of idea of like no matter how low you sink, no matter how low you sink in the world, there's always somebody out there that's going to be trying to take advantage of you. That's just a really um brutally realistic concept to realize that is portrayed in Kaiji. Like there's there's always going to be somebody out there trying to take advantage of you no matter where you are. So it's
yeah.
it's important to
Yeah,
realize that.
exactly. And why it feels good is that you can relate to Kaiji like as I said, like you're working like maybe 14, 15 hours a day. You already are a slave and everything, and
Yeah.
he's enticing him with this fucking beer and like, come on, you will make another whatever. And Kaiji indulges. He does. Because that's
Right,
why
because
he's
it's
relatable.
yeah, it is very relatable, you know? It's just like you can totally understand why, like, even though he knows that, like, by buying this beer and buying this fried chicken, you know, he's putting himself further down in the hole. He just can't resist. It's like basic human emotion. And you know, Tei kind of operates on this. Well, if you do everything perfectly, then you can get out. Like, it's no problem. But when you're actually put there and you're in that situation, you just crave that momentary release so badly. And, I mean, I feel like that's kind of the same kind of mindset that drives a lot of people to be alcoholics in the real world, too, is just like needing that release from the horrible life that they have, you know? And, which is something I can relate to, you know. Even though, you know, I live in America and it's not like my life isn't that bad. My life is pretty fine, but
Everybody,
it's at the same time I still do crave
everybody,
that like release from
everybody can relate to that, and that's why part three is so great because um, another character in another fictional show would just be like, "No, I'm not gonna waste my money. I'm gonna be whatever." But no, Kaiji is a human being. He wastes his money, and that's why it's
yeah,
so great.
it's great because it's like exactly what most people would do, you know? It's not like Kaiji is not some kind of like saint. He's not some kind of like amazing like just like perfect human being. No, he's a real relatable human being with real wants and needs, real desires, and he falls victim to traps like that just like everybody else would, you know? He's not some kind of like super genius, but he has this way of like finding um the exact right move to get out of whatever situation he's in when he's really pushed into a corner, which is
It
really
feels
cool to
like,
see.
yeah, it feels like Kaiji is like uh, the normal, like relatable person you know. But when you like push him,
Yeah,
then he like comes out. And
right.
that's what happens in part two, in the Chinchirorin.
Yeah.
He was pushed a lot. He was pushed so much, and it felt so like I even like was feeling really terrible, like watching him getting like even at the dinner, like the worst food you can ever imagine.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Like they would just give them like kind of just like basic prison food essentially.
yeah, and he was pushed, and that's why there was this epic moment, the best moment in part two at least, of Kaiji coming out, and it's all like related. It's not like he found a very different strategy to beat Ohtsuki. It's he had like we have to mention Miyoshi
Of
and his
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cuz Miyoshi seemed like a good character at first. He seemed like a good guy, right? He seemed like this you know, this kind of like he was shy and awkward and kind of had like you know, he kind of let people push him around, but he still was, you know, intelligent. He was like working out like the like he was writing down all the rolls of the dice just in case there might be some kind of like quote unquote like luck bias that he could take advantage of. But at the same time, like, you know, he was doing something studious that like a lot of people would just like not even think of doing, which did pave the way for Kaiji to realize that hey,
yeah,
all these rolls of the dice are like not normal. Every time that Otsuki's in a normal or every time that Otsuki's in a like a desperate situation where he needs to win, he seems to roll like a 4 5 6 or like a you know a 6 or something really good. Like why is that? You know, and that's what kind of gets the gears churning in his head. So
and that's another part which I love about part two is Kaiji is like not alone. he's not working alone. There are the 45ers, and they work together, and um, so he couldn't have realized Ohtsuki is cheating himself. He read the Miyoshi, and uh, then he came up with a plan, and they trusted Kaiji, and they, I don't know if it was like weeks or months, which they like pulled through.
God, it
Um,
had to have been
w-
months.
yeah, saving up money just to have this like epic showdown and throwing the money and saying, "Let's bet."
Yes, and that's just such a monumental moment. You imagine just slaving away for months and months and months just to get to one chance to maybe topple Otsuki's scheme. It's just like that idea. Um, they really it seemed like they had like a really good bond on the surface. Um,
But that's the thing. Like they didn't have to because they were all like honestly that like they didn't have to do it. Like they just believed in Kaiji because he appeared to be a good guy. So there was like um belief. They had to
yeah.
trust him. There was trust, which I'm trying to say. Like they didn't have to do it. They could have just like said like you're crazy, whatever, fuck off. But they believed in him.
Yeah, they saw something in Kaiji that a lot of secondary characters also see in Kaiji, that he has the kind
Yeah.
of the courage to never back down, that he's, confident enough to like God, I there was like some moment where like Kaiji like stood up to Otsuki like right in front of everybody. Do you remember exactly what that was? Like I think it was I'm picturing like the 45ers all like gathered around in a circle, and then like Kaiji just gets up and does something like, and Otsuki's over like gambling with other people. Do you remember that?
Um,
Or am I making that up?
I remember it was more about like Kaiji realizing that he's getting like more into debt and more into shit, and he was like not really like he was like really like facing off like Otsuki, but but in his mind he was already preparing the plan, so he had like this big hatred for Otsuki, and was preparing to bring him down, but I don't think he was ever like before the final game. I think he was ever like um, throwing him off or something. I don't remember
Yeah,
that.
Yaro was just talking about how he like threw beer in Otsuki's face at one point. I mean that was definitely a huge moment of
Yeah,
defiance.
yeah. Sorry, there was that part, but it was
Yeah,
almost
that
like
wasn't exactly what I was picturing, but yeah, I mean that was the most blatant, like just straight up like fuck you to Otsuki. Like I don't care about what you're doing to me. I'm
part
taking
of
your money
Kaiji's
by
mind game.
force.
It was part of like Kaiji's mind game to piss him off
Yeah.
for the final moment. But I don't remember like being like Kaiji like going like you're an asshole, you're a terrible person or something like that. He whatever he did like with this beer on his face was like preparing for the moment he owns him.
Yeah. Yeah, and Tamber was just talking about how like Otsuki kind of like he like in his mind he almost had like a better life underground than he would have had above ground at the same time. Like Otsuki like was kind of like the boss of like everybody underground, and if you went up ground like above ground again, like he would just be a nobody again. So I don't know. That's another motivation that Tamper just brought up. But
Yeah, that connects with the part where I said I don't think he was like actively trying to get this vacation out. That's what confused me. So it
yeah, he was just
connects.
hoping for maybe like a little vacation, just to see how it's like, just to spend money lavishly above ground for a month or two. Um, but yeah, it's been so long since I've watched part two that I don't remember exactly like all the details of exactly how Kaiji wins. But it was I just
Well,
remember it was pretty epic, and I remember like the the steak bone dice.
Of course, you remember that because but that comes at the very end. Before that, it was more like him waiting for the perfect moment, and he predicted his dice and everything, and him just coming up. And it's not only him; it's the 45ers, which also threw money at the right moment.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They all like made big bets like just when they knew that yeah, oh yeah, and like
Yeah,
Kaiji was like watching him or something. He was like watching for the moment that he reached into his pocket and grabbed the trick dice. And yeah, Otsuki
yeah,
was like, yeah, I remember now. Yeah, like Otsuki was like thinking like, oh, like he knows. He must know. He must know something. But like the fact that Kaiji was just sitting there and letting him roll like kind of tricked him into thinking like, oh, he doesn't know. I can get away with this. And then that's when Kaiji realizes, okay, now's the time. Um
yeah. Because there was one big mind game in the few episodes. It was Ohtsuki doubting that Kaiji might know that he's using like these loaded dices. Um, and Kaiji, that's what's so brilliant about it. He's waiting, like he lets him use
Yeah,
normal
he's just
dice
watching and waiting, and yeah, he reaches his hand in at the exact right moment. Um,
for the perfect moment where he knows, like he put Tsuki on the spot. Like he had to use the low dices, otherwise he would have lost, and he was waiting for that.
yeah, he was
It's so great.
definitely yeah. And how did he get him to like accept his? Oh yeah, it was kind of like this thing where like, well, you're using trick dice. Why can't I use trick dice? It's only fair for me to use trick dice, and that's when he brings out like the steak bone dice, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Kaiji was like waiting. He was very patient, and that's the best part about it. Because as I was rewatching it, I was like waiting, like use them now, use them now, use them now. No,
Right.
no, no. He didn't. He was waiting, and the story switched to Otsuki and his like thoughts, um, and his backstory of like finding these like low dice. Um, and the best part is. Kaiji finally manifested this plan and said, "Let's use let's use dice which only we can share, like our friends can share,
Yeah.
even though they're fake. Let's use dice like that
Oh
for
yeah.
the last
And why don't
gamble."
we talk about Kurosaki? The fact that Kurosaki shows up.
Was he lucky
Well, he was the
of
new
the
number
co-
two. He was the after Tonegawa got disgraced by
oh,
Kaiji. Like,
oh, that guy. Yeah,
yeah,
that was definitely another part which was great.
yeah. It was
Um,
kind of like, what? Why is this guy here? And he's just, why was he here? Do you remember? I think I have a vague recollection, but I'm just you've watched it recently, so I'm trying to.
Yeah, he basically appeared because somebody needs to keep people like Ohtsuki in check, and he appears and just says, "You lost. You agreed to this. The rules stay the same. You agree that you can use dice with your friends,
Yeah,
which you brought."
rigged dice.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, just to show that Ohtsuki is like not that like important in the company. There was also another one which appeared like. From another group. He was like, he was just like, "Hey, I'm from number 17 group, whatever. I
yeah.
also need to like watch this game." And
Okay, I'm gonna buy you a new mic after we're done streaming today. It's
I'm,
it's
I'm, I'm,
it's just really
hey,
hard.
I'm,
Um,
I'm sorry. I'm trying to.
no, it's not your
Make,
fault. It's. I think you probably like there was like something that went wrong last week, and like you might have like busted your webcam or something. Um, But I can still hear most of what you're saying. It's just like you cut out like every so often. But whatever. We'll just keep going like this. But yeah, we're talking about Kurosaki. Yeah, and I think the fact that he showed up like really like gave kind of like a big air of importance to was it not a thing that he showed up because Kaiji was in the gamble? Was it like that was what I thought. Like that's what I thought like oh Kurosaki showed up because this is a big deal. They've all noticed that Kaiji's been plotting something and they're all like really interested in this. It's kind of like it like my impression was that it was just so interesting to Tei that they were willing to like treat it as kind of a spectacle and make sure that the rules were upheld, even though it technically didn't really even mean anything to them, even though it technically didn't even make them any money, but they still wanted to like uphold the rules of the gamble just to make it like more of a show. Is kind of the way that remember it, but is that how it was portrayed? Was there any air of that?
Yeah. Okay. Now I have to bring in the pachinko stuff because there's Hyoudou and there are like whole episodes like explaining like um, we need to show these slaves the gamblers themselves because we have to give them hope. And I think that Kurosaki was watching the gamble
Mm,
from behind because was watching Kaiji, and I mean Kyoto himself was watching the bog game.
the bog game, yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I think like they are watching them playing, and if they notice that somebody like Kaiji shows up, which just owns Ohtsuki, that they need to like show up and keep the slaves um motivated, you know?
Oh, yeah, that could be an aspect of it too. Just like if they didn't like uphold the rules of the dice game, then the slaves would feel like, well, this is unfair. Like, this guy is clearly cheating. He's a really bad guy. We're all rebelling, and they wanted to maintain that sense of order as well.
Yeah, and that's what's also actually like literally like said in the show. Um, so I think that's why Kurosaki appeared because somebody ringed him and said, "Look, somebody won a gamble. They outsmarted one of our
Foreman,
low-level managers, I
yeah,
guess. And you need to like make sure that the people see that he actually gets what he deserves."
right, exactly, and he definitely deserved it. Like, there's no question about that. Um, it was just very sad. It's kind of like a I don't know how to put it. Like a first term that came to my mind was like Prince and the Pauper kind of situation where I don't even remember how that story goes. Whatever, I'm talking out of my ass right now. But it was like I don't know, this just underdog comeback story. We'll just leave it at that. It was just really cool to see. It was just so cool and so hype and like I tried to get my I remember in high school I tried to get my friend to watch Kaiji season 2. Like I would literally like just send him emails like every other week just being like you got to watch this. This is so amazing. He never did. But like I wish he would have because it was just it's like a completely different kind of euphoria than part 1. It's a completely different kind of like just like the villain gets exactly what they deserve and it's almost like you're with Kaiji like just you've been with Kaiji for so long like through his entire underground journey just like watching him slave away, watching him struggle to like just get by and just this momentous occasion of yes, finally we beat this guy. We beat this guy who's been holding us down this entire time. Um it's just such a like I feel like in part one it was
Completely
all
different.
about survival, just making sure that we
Yeah,
live. But in part two, it's like it's actually like just breaking free of this system. That's a completely different kind of euphoria right there. And that's literally what all of part two is just breaking out of this system.
and I mean the best comparison is in part one on the ship of Espoir, the biggest threat is that if you lose, you're gonna be a slave.
Right.
Um, so that's the biggest threat. But in part two, Kaiji is literally a
He's
slave,
there.
so it happened to him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like you can't. You would think that you can't really sink any lower than that, but you definitely can. You know, you can be a freaking like you can be in debt while you're in debt and at the bottom of hell, and it's like um it's just like you can even sink lower than that, you know, and it's just like um just seeing it, like just seeing actually the world that was hinted to in the Espoir arc of this like underground wage camp. Just seeing that in reality is very worth it, if nothing else. Just seeing that alone, I feel like is what really makes part two stand out on its own. Um, and
yeah, because nobody expected it. You watch part one, you expect
yeah,
Kaiji to enter another gamble, um, but
it does
no,
come kind of out
no,
of nowhere in a
yeah,
sense. But it makes sense the way it does come out of nowhere because you know he's in this much debt to Tei after losing his fingers and having to have them reattached. You know, so it's like um, it's totally believable. It's just unpredictable, is what it is.
yeah. That's what I want to say. Like, if you finish like part one and somebody asks you, how do you think it's gonna continue? I don't think anybody would say he's gonna end up as a slave in the underground.
Yeah, like the very next moment in the series.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, and yeah, and
yeah. Sorry,
do you
sorry.
have
I'm
any?
sorry.
No, if you have anything else to add, definitely add it now, and then I have something else to bring up.
I just want to add that there is a great moment which Tambor mentioned, where Kaiji is waiting so much, and the whole audience is waiting for him to call out the bullshit of Ohtsuki, and it's poetic in a way where Kaiji grabs the ball when he knew that he finally used fake dice, um, and the narrator says, not the Naruto, sorry if it sounds like a
I thought you
narrator
said
says,
narrator.
uh, yeah, he says like, this is the moment only God knows, and
Right.
that's the moment he grabbed the ball, and that's one other thing which is so great about part two.
Yeah, all those metaphors and all those like just the dramatic phrasing of everything just really like pulls you along. Like I don't think they could have made it work with any other narrator than someone who is that enthusiastic and just great to listen to and very hype inducing. Um but
Right, that's all I had to say. So now it's time for you to say
yeah.
something.
Okay. Yeah, so I was gonna like I don't know why this came to my mind, but I think it was just talking about the early chapters of part 2. Um what do you think about I think it's so interesting the mindset that Hyodo has of like what does it take for a king to really be a king and maintain being a king? And his solution is you need to be able to protect your life no matter what happens. Just in the case of a nuclear apocalypse, you need to be able to make sure that you have like an underground bunker that you can live the rest of your life in. That's what it means to be really rich, is that no matter what happens in the world, you will be safe. You alone will be safe. And he's literally putting people through this slave labor in order to achieve that. And that alone, I feel like is a really interesting point. It's like just thinking about like it's such a foreign concept to people who aren't that wealthy, you know? It's such a foreign idea, like maintaining your life no matter what. Well, if the world ends, then what are you going to do? But no, Hyodo is like, if the world ends, I'm going to still be here because I'm just that wealthy. I'm that much of a king, you know? And it's, um,
Yeah, and that's a part of the pachinko game where he's looking down on the people, like he's looking down on Kaiji, he's looking down on the 45ers rooting for Kaiji. Um, that mindset might make him very wealthy and rich, but at the same time he's afraid. Like he's afraid of nuclear bombs, so
Hmm.
he's not living life freely.
I mean, I guess yeah, being a king does come with its own set of like fears, right? Like what if the people rebel? Like even if we're just talking about kings of antiquity, like freaking I don't know, King Henry VIII or someone like that. Like just like what if the people rebel? What if like, what if like my someone in my like someone like directly below me decides to betray me and just cut off my head, or like, there's all sorts of scenarios that like go through your mind. And I think what happens, it's a really interesting. I don't really think about this a lot, but it is something interesting to think about. But I think what happens when you get that wealthy, when you get that high up in stature, is you kind of spend your whole life just worrying about what could happen to you. Almost, it's not really that cathartic. Like money buys you happiness up to a certain point. Like if you have enough money to live off of, then you've basically maxed out on your happiness that money can give you. And furthermore, if you get so much money that you're basically a king on earth, like at that point your life actually becomes a lot more stressful, because you're always worried about like appeasing your lower people, about keeping the people in line, like making sure that they do their job even if they hate you, like all of that stuff. It's kind of like it's he really is like the character of Hyodo really is kind of like a modern day king, and it's really interesting to see it, to have that kind of person portrayed, because like we don't really see them a lot. We see like, world leaders and stuff, but we don't really see the kinds of people that are just so wealthy that they have this much authority over the common people all that much. So that's another thing. Hyodo is another character that is really interesting to see, to really think about and understand at the same time.
100%, definitely. Um, I will make a comparison with even though they're like other series, Hyodo and Akagi. The way I
Hmm.
see it is Akagi could have become Hyodo if he wanted to, you know.
Oh, well, I mean, he had the
But
smarts
he,
for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he chose like his freedom.
Yeah.
Um, so Hyodo, even though he's rich and even though he's like smiling all the time and everything, looking down on people, he's afraid about so many things. Akagi was never afraid
Right.
because he didn't have that kind of responsibility like Hyodo, like being the head of a big organization.
Mm.
So that's what comes to my mind when I listen to you talk about that.
Yeah, I guess it. And I have heard people speculate, like, is Hyodo a future version of Akagi? Which obviously he isn't, because like we know how Akagi's life ends up. But when you just watch Kaiji and you hear about this Akagi guy, it's like, oh, they both have white hair. Like maybe Hyodo is a future version of Akagi or something. It's kind of a thought that pops into people's minds when they see the character of Hyodo, because Hyodo is just such a kind of a calculating yet kind of like mad with power kind of character. Which now that I think about it, yeah, I guess that was a potential path for Akagi, potentially. Like if he put his smarts to use in a different way, if he put if he like invested in stuff and he like made sure to play the odds the right way. Do you remember how Hyodo got so rich? I'm trying to think. How did Hyodo get so rich?
By
Has
looking down, looking down on
Yeah, has
people.
it ever been stated exactly how Hyodo made his
I
money?
think
We know how Washizu made his money, but Hyodo? Do we?
no, we don't. But I assume it's uh, debt collecting and
Yeah, oh yeah,
yakuza stuff.
sure. Just being like the like chairman of this big like debt collection agency. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah, the
Uh,
fact that he had the intelligence to create this debt collection agency in the first place, and debt collection is such a kind of like almost like dark, like sinister company as it is. Just the fact of tracking down people who are in who are in debt to you, and like forcing them to pay you back whether they have it or not. That is kind of already just such a dark
But we
company.
never see it in the shows. But
Yeah,
I
well,
can
we
see him
do.
like the way he talks and the way he looks down on people. I just didn't see him like he made his money preying on the weak.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure
And
that it's just
Manga,
gotten to
for
his head and
example.
he's justified it. Um but yeah, yeah, I would say that it is just a really perfect kind of antagonist to have. Just this guy that's so egotistical and full of himself and like I can almost kind of imagine how he kind of just almost suppressed his humanity in this pursuit of money. Almost. He kind of like he stopped caring about other people because the more he stopped caring about other people, the richer he became, you know? And it's kind of a path that you can understand a person going down in the real world, which is a
Yeah,
shame that
yeah.
you can get to that way. That's like almost the dark side of capitalism right there in a nutshell, is that like the less you care about people, the more money can potentially make. The more people you can screw over, the more money comes into your pockets. And it's so sad that the world is like that, but I mean, we don't really have anything better. Um,
That's a beautiful point to bring up because that's what makes Kaiji so great. Because um, there's a point in part two where he says we split all the money evenly with the 45ers,
mm, yeah.
and Miyoshi is saying like, no way, like you did all of this. Like Kaiji says, Kaiji says, no, we're gonna split it evenly. Without you guys, I wouldn't have made it. And that's the best like comparison because I think if it was Hyoudou, he would have just said like, "I'm gonna take all the money, fuck you."
Right, exactly. Like I'm the king. I deserve all the money. You're my paupers, you're my peasants. So you give me your money, and that's just how it is, you know. But yeah, no, Kaiji is a real like he has a heart, he has a human being. I feel like there's like everybody should try and be like Kaiji, really. If everybody was like Kaiji, then the world would be just great, you know. But the sad fact of reality is that Kaiji is a good guy living in a freaking world filled with people out to try and backstab each other, and he just has to try and like, get back at them. It's almost like being in a world filled with like nasty like backstabbing people kind of makes you have to like backstab yourself a little bit, but you at the same time you can't like go out of your way to do it actively. You have to
I
you
think
only like do what's done to you. Like you only return like the things that are done to you. Like you only do it when it's justified, you know. Like I feel like that's and that's kind of how Kaiji is. He only like, tricks people and um um uh gets their money when like they've done something to him. You know, he never doubts anybody until they give him reason to doubt them, which is really is
I think everybody feels like a kaiji inside their heart, and you want to be kaiji, you want to be like this good guy, but life forces everybody to
yeah, kind of,
look after the money.
yes, almost sell their soul in a way. I mean,
Yeah,
otherwise you wouldn't have people like Ohtsuki in the world, like people who just have stopped caring about like other people completely and just want to all they care about is what's in it for them, and just like how can I manipulate people um to get the most that I can for myself. Like just stop thinking about what they're going through, what the consequences of your actions are going to be if you screw them out of their money. They just you get to a point where you're just so what's the word? Like I don't know, you cross a certain threshold and you just stop caring, which is so sad that people can get there. But it's happened throughout all human history. It's not even a modern thing. It's like there's always been people like that. Um and
yeah,
you really have to understand it.
Kaiji is something everybody needs because you watch all of these shows and it's all appealing to you if you like sexy girls, if you like
Yeah.
whatever is like appealing to you. It's just like your brain turning off for another 1 hour or 20 minutes or whatever. And when you watch Kaiji, it's like, holy shit, this is something I can get into. Like, I feel him. I
Right.
feel his character.
It's engaging, you feel for Kaiji, and you kind of it almost teaches you about how the world really is at the same time. Like without all this puff and fluff about like, oh, let's find our perfect romantic partner and the rest of nothing else matters. It's like, no, Kaiji is all about like the ugly dark truths of reality and like so there's some characters that are twisted in their own ways and they give logical points, but it's there's like kind of a sense of like are you really looking at things the right way? But there is truth in pretty much everything that Kaiji has to offer, which is really it opens your mind to the world a lot. Uh,
Yeah. Sorry, I took a second. Because Kaiji is from the start very pure and naive,
yeah,
and that's something everybody can relate to. Definitely,
right.
everybody felt like Kaiji at some point of life. Um, and the show doesn't try to like portray him like, he's like at the bottom of his life, but he has this chance for his amazing abilities. No, it's just like very pure, very
Yeah, he's just he's just trying to get by and like he trusts people too much and which is a hard it's a hard reality to come to that you can trust someone too much, it's something that everybody has to learn at some point because betrayals do happen. um you have to kind of I feel like it's also a lesson that everybody learns at one point in their life, no matter like how good they think people are, there's always somebody out there that's trying to betray you. um And I mean, I don't know if you want to, if you want me to like go off about a time that I was betrayed. Like I don't know. We're just talking about just part two in general, but would it be okay if
well,
I just like?
yeah, sure. Like if it ties in,
I mean, yeah,
you could
because
also mention
this was the moment that I kind of
stories.
yeah, this was the moment that I kind of was like, wow, okay. I thought Kaiju was like just a fantasy story, but no, there's actually people out there that do betray you. It was like because I was just really. I think the big thing about this time that I was betrayed is that like I was so pure and naive, and I just trusted this person so much that I didn't even cross my mind that she might betray me. It didn't even enter in my head. The red flags were all there, but essentially what happened was like I knew this woman. She was like probably like I don't know 35 or something, and she was working at my Subway. And she'd been working there for a good year, and I was like good friends with her. Like we would joke around. Like she was like a pretty decent human being, is at least I thought. But around the time that my manager decided to move away, to like pursue a different career, she decided that she was going to move to Ohio, and it sounds so stupid now that I'm thinking about it. Like, why did I ever do this? But she wanted
No,
to,
it doesn't sound stupid. It's fine.
yeah, but she wanted me to like let her use my debit card in order to rent a car. And the thing she said was like, "Oh, my like I don't even remember what it was. It was like she had the money but she just her credit card was like being investigated or something and like she just couldn't pay for it right now, but she really needed to get to Ohio, and she would basically the only reason that I was using my debit card was so that like just in case something bad happened, like she could have me pay for it, and then like she would pay me back later. But what wound up happening is that like she left to Ohio, and then I freaking got a like when I tried to use my debit card about 2 months later, there was no money in it, and I couldn't use it. And I was like, "What? What happened?" And I went to the freaking Wells Fargo, and it turns out that she had like ditched the freaking rental car in a ditch. She had cigarette burns like all over the entire car. She had just completely trashed the vehicle, and like she had saddled me with all of her debt, all of the money that like had that it would have taken to fix that car, and basically it cost me like $7,000, and I wound up um like being in debt and having to work it off, working like 50 hours a week in order to like make it back. So I don't know. I don't know if that was of value to anything, because I'm sure everybody's had a experience like that at some point in their life, but that was
Yeah,
my
yeah,
moment when I was like, wow, I knew this girl for an entire year. She seems so nice, so good, and yet she freaking betrayed me. She saddled me with all of this debt, and now I freaking just can't I can't I can't trust people anymore. Well, not that
no,
easily,
no,
It's I can trust people, but I like, I have to like use my brain, and I have to be like, okay, are you really being genuine here? Are you trying to get something from me?
yeah, and everybody had like experience like that, and that makes like stressful. That makes you. I don't. I don't want to say more mature or something like that, but that's why Kaiji appeals to everybody because um, we all were Kaiji some point in our life. Um,
Right.
before you were like betrayed, before you like saw the ugly side of humanity, you you were like Kaiji. You were just trying to do your best to get
Yeah, it's kind of
by,
like,
and
yeah, like when you're young, you have this kind of like almost Disney-esque view of the world. You kind of like think that the world is kind of like a Disney movie, like, oh, there's a person out there just for you, and you're gonna um and like everybody's all happy, and maybe there's a bad guy out there that's trying to um like steal your or to like do something bad to you, but they're obviously evil, and you can tell them apart, pretty easily. But not really. It's like some people just have it so deep down inside them that you can't even tell, and it's like, it's kind of like an Ohtsuki. He looks really nice on the surface, but he once you like really understand him, you realize that there's nothing but um dark blackness in his heart. There's nothing else behind that Cheshire cat grin than just pure malice, and it's
I definitely get what you mean. Yeah, I totally understand it. It's like as long as our parents are taking care of us and we don't have to think about money and we don't have to think about a career, we are all like very trustful. We believe in humanity. Um, and when you see Kaiji, you remember that. But sadly, all of our lives
oh
made
my
us
god,
kind of pessimistic, kind of like trying to get by. People are like the biggest motivation of all people is trying to get by,
for sure.
just trying to survive. Um, it's rare to see somebody like Kaiji who is just like a good guy who is splitting his money, and I think that's a great
Yeah,
scene.
it's
Like
kind
he's
of like,
just splitting the money evenly.
yeah, it's very hopeful almost. It's like there's a guy there are people out there like Kaiji as well. There's not just Otsukis in the world. There's Kaijis too, and it's kind of like um you have to kind of like try and discern which type of person you're dealing with. It's not just about it's not just about seeing the darkness of humanity. It's also about seeing the light of humanity. And that's not a whatever. It's like you know, you got to see the good and the bad in humanity. And kind of discern which one is which.
And the show is kind of like showing you like don't give up.
Right.
There is a way. There is a way which in which it'll get better. Like don't give up on this belief that you can stay pure and naive and believe in people, trust in people. It's possible. Don't give up.
Right.
You
Yeah,
said, as you
it's
said, if
possible.
everybody was like Kaiji, the world would be better.
It would be better. It would be so much better if everybody was a kaiji. But you know, the way the world is right now, um you have to be like kaiji as much as you can, but you can't go too far. Um you have to I would say kaiji is kind of
It's
almost
the
a
only way
perfect
to
balance because
survive.
the he understands when people are being like just jerks and he you know is able to discern them from like well not even
Yeah, but he learned it like with us. The show started because at the beginning he was totally hopeless. Like he didn't understand anything about people and stuff. He was just some guy drinking, smoking, playing poker at some time with his friends, uh, but totally hopeless. And as you watch the show, you see him like um, learn new things,
yeah,
but
yeah,
at the
you see
same
him
time,
grow as a character. um Definitely from the very
at the
first time
same
we see him.
yeah, and as you see him like learn new things, he kind of changes the way because still stays good. Like even though he learned all about this, like after the betrayal of Huruhata and Ando, you can see him like hating humanity and everybody, but he doesn't.
Right.
I want to get back to the show.
Yeah, let's
It
do.
was
Let's do.
very. Um, there's a part in Kaiji Part Two. He's being like hit by Ohtsuki and his like lackeys or whatever, and he's like being hit and shit on whatever when he grabbed the dice, and he was crying and it was so great to see because he won in the end because even though with his whole plan there was no guarantee that AI is gonna agree with it. Like they could just have said like shut up, no, no. Um,
Right.
but he made it, and the scene where he is like lying on the bench, just happy to,
Oh,
and
like
the animators,
when he gets to the like outside world.
yeah, and the animators especially put like some additional effort where he was like breathing, just breathing the fresh air and
Right.
drinking the fresh water. And that's one moment when I was so happy. I don't usually feel very happy watching shows, but when I saw that, I was like, "Fuck yeah, Kaiji, go, go!"
Yeah, because it is like when you're deprived of like basic human or basic real world like luxuries for so long, just even like fresh air and clean water and like um all that stuff. It's such a relief to get back to it. You know, people that have been like stranded on islands or something like that, they never see the world the same way again. Because like you know, just the fact that you can go out and you can buy food in a supermarket, that just seems like such a everyday occurrence to us. But it's just like such a luxury to them, and especially in a even in a situation like Kaiji's, it's like, he was deprived of such basic human needs for so long that like it's just so cathartic to get back to it. So that moment in particular is really good, but um it's that's not even like the best thing that happens, it's then we continue along.
They're better things, of course, but the line which I remember was that um, Kaiji woke up on the bench and he said, "Sun, sunlight."
Right.
That's another luxury you don't have when you're a slave in the underground. Like
Yes,
you don't
yes.
even appreciate.
Yeah, just the sun being on your skin. It feels, you know, if like even just like if you've been cooped up inside for too long, just going outside and feeling the sun on your skin just feels so good. It's just such a, so you can totally relate to how Kaiji feels there.
And that was a great moment because even though you watch the whole part where he struggling in the underground, when he says, "I enjoyed sunlight again," you just realize he was in almost almost literal hell. Like
Right.
you, it can't get worse than the life he had underground.
It really can't. Yeah, it's yeah, and the fact that he made it out of that and he was strong enough to find a way, no matter how desperate it seemed, he was able to find a way out. And it's so magnificent the way that he did it, but also like really like you understand how unlikely it was at the same time. Like there's so many people still left down there that didn't have the same opportunity that he had, but he just had that tenacity to never give up. Even while he was in the other room on the Espoir, like he still had the tenacity to be like, well, this guy's in here for a reason. He must have some valuables on him. And just grab the freaking bandage off of his back. It's that same kind of tenacity. It's that same kind of willingness to never give up that got him into the outside world.
Yeah, and that's what's inspiring. I wanna talk about in the last podcast you said or you mentioned that the narrator, holy shit, I hope I said right.
You said it right, yeah.
Okay,
Or narrator, yeah.
was yeah was implying that Kaiji is a gambling addict. Do you really think like he's like a gambling addict?
Mm. I think so. Yeah, he has to be right because he keeps going back. Like there's this kind of like uh it just kind of like he spends his whole a lot of his days like when he has the option to just playing pachinko or just playing poker or anything like that, and he just continually goes back to it. And even games like Tei's games, like he finds some kind of thrill in, and he just can't help but resist it. And it's kind of almost like he structures his life around like, when's my next gamble gonna be, when's the next time I'm gonna be able to have fun playing a game for high stakes. Um,
Yeah, I agree, definitely. I mean, that seemed like in the show. Um, what I'm curious about, the way I think about Kaiji is that um, he's not like literally like a gambling addict. Um, he just like succeeded for his first time
he
in the yeah, like because before the ship and before Espoir, he never really succeeded in anything. And
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like almost the dopamine rush he gets from like succeeding at Tei's games almost motivates him to like go back time and time again. Is that what you think?
um, I think it's the first experience in his life where he thinks that he is good at it.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean he is. There's no doubt about that. Um, but I mean,
Because
like
because
Tamber said, he. I guess we haven't really got there, but like he does gamble away money he wins. Um, like like even if like he needs it, he just kind of gambles it away.
If I'm sounding crazy, it's like the difference between the first episode where he's like, "I hate myself, I hate my life, I failed everything." Um, Through pure chance, he kind of won at Espoir at the um, rock paper scissors games, and that kind of like said to him like, "This is something I can succeed in. This is something I can
Yeah,
win." Um, so I wouldn't say he's like a gambling junkie. I would say like he's just with his life situation. He's just like that's the only thing which
I
can
mean,
make him like
I have to say there's times when we see like even that little story that Mikoko draws of like Kaiji's life in part 5, I think. It's like just kind of showcasing that Kaiji, he'll get money, he'll be like, okay, this is the last time I'm borrowing money, and he'll go gamble it, and then he'll come back to Mikoko and be like, can I have some more money? And it just keeps cycling through that. That's like kind of the cycle of a gambling addict. Just someone who can't really live without feeling that kind of thrill. Like that's kind of what he just is drawn to and what he's pulled to. I wouldn't say he's like a desperate case because he was able to get through the underground um work camp without gambling every day. It's not I guess it would like I would put it like this. Like when Kaiji is when he's in a situation where he's required to do something like in order to survive, he's willing to like look past like like wanting to gamble or anything. But when he has free time and he has nothing better to do and he just it just comes into his head like, well, why not just go gamble, and it's just like that's his first thought. It's not like why not watch a movie, why not read a book. It's why not gamble, why not go waste some money. you know and it's just that's what he's drawn to, and he kind of can't resist that urge. That's how I would classify him.
yeah, that's a very valid opinion. I'm just thinking like he literally has nothing in his life, and if he succeeds one time with gambling, might be something that he might think that will save him from the sadness and everything.
Yeah.
And I might be wrong, and I probably am wrong. It's just something the way I looked at the show when I was like watching or reading it.
Hmm. um I would say I think you probably want to relate to Kaiji, and you kind of see him for his good qualities. um and you kind of like if he has a gambling addiction, that's kind of secondary in the way that you see Kaiji, would be my guess. But I would say that there definitely is that kind of aspect to his character, for sure.
Yeah, like we're not like arguing at all.
Right, of course.
Um,
But anyway, it's like it
you
is
might call it
he is or he isn't. It doesn't really matter. Like he's just a good guy. That's what he is at the end of the day. He's just a good guy. So that's
yeah, but
that's all that really matters.
that's all that really matters. I just don't see him like if the whole ship thing didn't happen, I don't see him going crazy. Like after the in the second part, after he made it out, he was already thinking like, how can I make money um through a gamble?
Mm,
But the only reason I think that's what he's thinking about is because he succeeded in the past. Um,
sure. That's yeah. Uh, I mean it could be, could be. But in any case, we know Kaiji as the way he is, and we love him the way he is, and I wouldn't change anything about him. So Um,
Yeah, me neither. Do you wanna talk about the pachinko
yes,
game? I-
let's do.
Yeah. So that's totally different from anything you have seen from Kaiji
Yes,
before.
it's almost like a completely different season from the like underground Chinchirorin segment. It's almost like a
Yeah,
completely different part.
yeah, it is. So I'm gonna ask you straight away, what did you think about the first time watching it? What
The
did you think about
first time. Well, I read it first. I read it in the manga first. And I would say I was very, I loved it. I was very engaged. I was very engrossed in it. If I had a gripe, it would be that it went on too long. But as far as like the build up, like the the setting, the situation that he was in, like the friends he met, the foes he made, the various strategies that he used, I would say it was all very well done. It was all very good. It was all very engaging. And yeah, again, my only gripe would be that like could have cut out maybe one or two twists near the end, and it would have been fine. But you know, it's like he wanted to revel in it. He wanted to revel in this momentous occasion and make it all the more um, euphoric when Kaiji finally did break through and win it.
it? Yeah, before I get into the whole pachinko arc, I'm gonna say it's a very beautiful job which Fukumoto did because after part one, as we talked about it, nobody expected them like Kaiji to be a slave. So
Right.
it was fun and refreshing. And then after that arc, nobody could see this pachinko god bog arc happening. So
Right.
it was
You
also
didn't know
refreshing.
what to expect.
Yeah. Um, and I think that's a beautiful thing about Fukumoto writing. Um, you just don't know what to expect. Uh,
Yeah, the next thing that happens is whatever Fukumoto wants. Whatever he's
yeah,
got in his head. It's you know, it's just up to that. It's not like what does the reader expect the next thing to happen? No, it's whatever Fukumoto wherever Fukumoto wants to take it, and that is beautiful. You know, it's beautiful that he has the freedom to do that and just tell whatever kind of story in whatever way he wants. That's just, you know, that's what makes the series really. If it weren't for that, then it wouldn't be so near and dear to so many people's hearts, I feel.
yeah, you're totally right. And I think even though some people say that the whole pachinko thing is like very different, I think the show needed that kind of break from mind games.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was a different take for sure. Um, I was telling you about this before, but it kind of like felt more like a bank heist kind of atmosphere to me. Like it's less about like what mind games are we going to use to outsmart the opponent, and more like what can we alter about the surrounding situation. Like the bog is the bank vault, and we're trying to use all the tools in our arsenal to try and break through that vault and get the money, you know, no matter what it takes, you know. And that's really what it's about. But at the same time, I think it really wouldn't work if you didn't have such a like engaging villain as Ichijou.
Ichijou is great because we talked a little bit about this before, but the reason I like Ichijou so much is because he's so different from the previous villains.
Very different.
Um, yeah, I mean, you have like Tonegawa, you have Endo, you have Hyoudou. They're like very kind of yes, kind of masculine guys. And then you have like Ichijou, who is like a little bit like feminine, has long
He's
hair.
flamboyant for sure. He's like,
Yeah,
you know, he's like kind of a, you know, kind of like very arrogant, very self-confident, but also he has a air of like just kind of like that to him as well. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see that kind of character and have him be in such a um menacing role in comparison to Kaiji. It's like like compared to like Tonegawa, compared to like all these other people, he's kind of more almost fun loving and almost more how do I put it? Like uh just he kind of seems to enjoy and revel in mocking Kaiji more in a certain
Have you
sense.
listened to the? Yeah, it does make sense. Have you listened to the English dub of Kaiji? Because I haven't.
There's an English dub?
I is there?
Is
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think there is.
Uh,
Is there?
um, because what
Oh,
I
you might
want
have
to
heard of
say
fan
is
dub.
yeah. Why I bring it up is because I know that most listeners don't speak Japanese, but you speak Japanese, and there's a big difference between Ichijou and the previous villains because he's so well spoken in a
Right.
Japanese way.
Yeah, yeah. He doesn't like lecture you. He kind of toys with you. He kind of like um uh almost kind yeah, he is very well spoken and he has like a way with like showing you how desperate your situation is through his words, kind of like just continuously like making fun of you for even having hope in the first place and kind of just putting you down all the time, which is kind of it really works in that arc because uh it's so it's just like because it's us versus the machine, right? So Ichijo is kind of the voice of you can't do it, you'll never do it, and it's just it's almost a needed kind of like it's almost like he's speaking for the bog as you're trying to get through to it. So I feel like that's kind of almost his role there.
I might have said I might have not expressed myself the best way. But there's a big difference between like for example like Kurosaki. If you listen to his Japanese and how he talks, um, and it's like that's what you expect. But then you get like Ichijo, and he talks like somebody who graduated at like he just speaks so well.
Yeah.
And this is a bad point because I can't explain to people how different Japanese can be.
I I would say that if I'd listened to it before the podcast like you had, I probably would have gotten a flavor for it. It's just been so long. Um I just remember the line like kore wa genjitsu, genjitsu desu. Like this is reality. Like that's like literally when
Yeah,
I think of Ichijo, like that mind pops into my mind.
and Kurosaki would have said, "Kore wa genjitsu da,
Yeah.
not des." And
Hmm.
this is this is something I feel bad about mentioning. Sorry, let's just move on about the pachinko game. Sorry, everybody.
Well, we can't move on from the pachinko game as a whole. Like what about Sakazaki? Sakazaki was a fun character, right?
Of course, he is because he's like a kaiji who just sucks.
Kaiji who sucks. Wow. Okay. That's a fun way of putting it. Um,
Like, well, he tries to be the machine, of course. And the reason I like him is because he approached Kaiji at the start and said, "You're not a yakuza. I know it. I have some background information. That's not how yakuza work.
right.
They wouldn't get their fingers reattached. So I need you for my plan to bring down the bog."
Right. Yeah, he kind of like senses a certain air about Kaiji just by the way that he handles the thugs. Is that not the point where he reveals like the scars on his fingers while he's like and Sakazaki like walks out from the shadows and is like, "Oh, I see what you did
Yeah,
there."
yeah,
Yeah, that was the point
yeah,
where it
yeah. That's the
happens.
point. yeah. Kaiji shows his like reattached fingers to the three guys trying to gang up on him, and he says, "I remember your faces. You're gonna suffer for this." And he tries to intimidate him with his fingers, and then Sakazaki comes out from the shadows and says, "No yakuza would ever reattach their fingers." So
Right. Oh
that was a
yeah,
good bluff.
that's an interesting point. Yeah, they would just live without him, I guess.
Yeah, because the point of cutting off your fingers for the yakuza is that you are repaying your shame. So
Right.
getting them reattached wouldn't make sense for yakuza.
Yeah, that's why so many yakuza. Well, that's why anime characters are depicted with five fingers, is because it's a common thing for yakuza to cut off the pinky as a tone of like recompensation for something that you did wrong. So like having a character depicted in an anime with four fingers would like bring about that kind of emotion in Japanese people's minds of like, oh, what did he do to lose that finger, you know? So that's why it's all anime characters are always depicted with five fingers, is specifically for that reason. Um,
Yeah, and the point of Kaiji showing it off, he was trying to scare some guys, but it actually doesn't make sense because the reason a yakuza would cut off his finger would be to say, "I'm sorry, I fucked up.
right.
I I sacrificed my finger or fingers." So it doesn't make sense that they would want to get it reattached because that's the message. Like, sorry.
Yeah. Um, for sure. I would say uh, like that it's kind of like so unusual at the same time though. It's not like, the common folk like really understand what exactly goes on in the yakuza firsthand. Um uh Holy crap, Tamber just did the next two chapters of Kaiji while we were doing this podcast. Okay. Or wait, the next chapter of Kaiji. Anyway,
That's
that
great.
just distracted me so much. I was just like, "Wow, really?"
Yeah, I'm happy about it.
Yeah, that's great. Good for you, Tamber. Getting some free time out of your busy schedule. Um but yeah, I guess going back to what we were talking about, it's so different for the common folk to even think about someone losing their fingers that it does work as an intimidation tactic at the same time.
Yeah, because if somebody shows you that like at some point they got their fingers cut off, like you gotta think about, okay, this guy is not normal. I'm kind of scared, and
Yeah,
and you
for
run
sure.
away.
Right. So, but anyway, I would say that Sakazaki is probably like one of the only like reasonable characters that Kaiji meets throughout his adventures. Um, he's probably one of the only like um guys that like I don't know. You can speculate all you want about like if Sakazaki was in Ando's place, would he have done the same thing? But like as far as what we see in the series, like um he seems to be reasonable in like what he wants to do, and the fact that he comes back like in Kaiji's most desperate hour, like when Kaiji's just like he's exhausted all his money and he has no money left, and like Kaiji's about to be whisked away back to the underground, and Sakazaki just comes in and he's like, not on my watch, and he freaking like just dumps a bunch of money that he took from his security job, and just is like, continue the game, continue the gamble, and he saves him. That I feel um is very
Yeah, yeah. There's
it
like
shows a
there's
certain level of like
yeah,
um of just good naturedness in him to not let his, because Sakazaki could have just walked away. Like he had that money, he could have just like walked away and been like, ah, whatever, Kaiji's doomed. But no, he came back and he freaking like saved Kaiji in that moment, and that was that was very reassuring to see. Like, not everybody in Kaiji is an Ando or a Furuhata. There are people in Kaiji that do have that willingness to save their allies. You know,
Do you remember the way Sakazaki lost his wife because there's only the daughter Miyako. Um, I can't remember like the way it happened. Was it because he was like
he lost his wife. Oh, well, as far he got divorced, you mean?
that's what I want to ask you because I don't remember
I
how
remember
exactly
because
it ended.
it's like it is a reoccurring theme in the later parts. Yeah, he got like divorced from his wife because yeah, so what happened is he got divorced from his wife, and then because he was kind of like uh do nothing, kind of like he didn't have enough money, like she just kind of like was like, I'm taking Mikoko and I'm just running away. And then like he got, that's kind of his motivation for wanting to beat the bog. That's kind of his motivation. Oh, okay, Timber even knows it was a recession and he lost his high paying job. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and he lost his job and he had to work at a security job. Um and uh and that was his motivation for wanting to beat the bog. And when he finally did beat the bog, he remarried his wife. Or I don't know if they even really got divorced or if she just kind of took off with Makoko, but in any case, they got back together. And because like she just felt like he was like a good for nothing until he proved that he wasn't. And that
Yeah.
meant more to him than anything, just being able to see his wife and see his daughter. That was a huge motivation for him.
So I was curious about it because um, his daughter is living with him. That's why she takes a liking to Kaiji.
Right.
There's the there's the ending song of Shikara Abishi.
Shikara Hajimaru ABC. That one.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah, and that kind of like gives you a
yeah, and
glimpse
I was
into the
like
very
curious,
first
like
chapters of part three in that ending.
yeah, and I was just curious, like how did they end up like living together if he was divorced and
Yeah, she came back to him
maybe
after he won the money.
okay.
And then they started living together. And Kaiji, he gets screwed by Endo because he freaking, that's another freaking betrayal, is Endo freaking like giving him this, like the fact that Endo thought to freaking write such a ridiculous amount of interest into the a contract that they were making to like just borrow money for the gamble that they were doing at that moment. The fact that Endo had the weasel like freaking snake like uh tenacity to freaking like write a ridiculous interest level that Kaiji would never in a million years look at just boggles the mind. The fact that he had the presence of mind to do that in the middle of the gamble is just like it's I don't know if it's ridiculous, but it's just so twisted, really.
And that's funny because there's one shot when I rewatched the part two. Endo is actually like crying when Kaiji won.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he like cares for Kaiji, but he still looks for
Yeah.
his self interest in
He's very self
equation.
motivated. I feel like he was crying because he maybe he cared a little bit about Kaiji. Maybe he wanted Kaiji to succeed, and he was so breathtaking by the fact that Kaiji succeeded that it kind of brought him to tears. But I have to imagine that like when he made that loan, he was um he was like uh making sure that even if Kaiji lost, he would still get something out of him. He was like covering all of his bases and making sure, like that if Kaiji lost, then he would owe him a huge amount of debt, and he would never be free from the underground. But he would continuously get money from Kaiji for the rest of his life, which is really, Endo is, he does have humanity in him, but it's been so stripped away at this point that he just like, a lot of people do like Endo is the thing. A lot of people do genuinely like Endo because he was kind of like a ally during the pachinko. But if you really look at his character, it's kind of like everything he does kind of has this underlying um kind of like what's in it for me, like, oh, why should I care about you when you can just make me so much money. That's kind of the character that Endo is. It's just kind of like a just self-serving kind of uh you know he, I, maybe he's happy on some level when people do pay him back on time, but he's so used to seeing people not do it that he's just kind of he doesn't even care anymore, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get his money you know yes, Endo is Fukumoto's favorite character of Kaiji, which is interesting. I guess he just likes writing for him because um he's such
There,
a
there,
like
there,
boss
there-
character.
there's a scene, there's a scene of Endo being alone in his one-room apartment, just like drinking beer and smoking. And he obviously appears very, very desperate and sad. So I don't think he does the things he does because he likes it. I think it's just something he has to do, and he feels very bad for the people he's gonna.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Well, reading his characterization in part 6, um I don't know. I don't know if I should even talk about that. I guess we should just, yeah. It's not like you can really like extrapolate his personality too well. It's not like a character like Kazuya that like we have parts and parts to like deeply understand his character. Endo is more of a character that we meet in passing and we kind of understand what he's kind of like, and we learn a little bit about him, and you can kind of make extrapolations on his personality from there. Um, but I don't know. Like I kind of feel,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I kind of brought the conversation to the wrong way because
huh?
Yada mentioned that it's one of Fukumoto's favorite characters, and I just remember the scene where he shows him especially very down. Um,
Mm.
he wouldn't usually do that, but he made him appear suffering, which kind of connects with one of his favorite characters, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you could say that if Fukumoto likes Endo so much, then Endo does have kind of a heart that we don't really see too much. I guess you could say that if Fukumoto likes Endo that much, then he kind of understands something about Endo that might not necessarily get portrayed super well in the series as a whole. Like that scene, like maybe that's kind of like a brief glimpse into the real Endo beneath all the like brutal loan sharking and brutal like just uh, using people for his own personal benefit. Maybe there's something deeper about Endo that only Fukumoto really understands, that we get glimpses of, but we don't necessarily see. I wouldn't say that Endo is necessarily uh irredeemable character by any means. He's definitely, you understand he's not like out there like just betraying people for the hell of it. There's always something like even in that moment when he wrote that contract for Kaiji, it was kind of a sense of like, well, I have to get money somehow. It wasn't like he had any personal bias against Kaiji. He probably liked Kaiji a lot at that point. It was just that he realized in his mind that realistically he had to get money from Kaiji somehow, no matter what, or else because Endo at that point was in kind of, I don't remember all the details, but he was in some kind of like financial trouble. at that point. Do you watched the series recently? Do you remember exactly what kind of financial trouble Endo was in, or did you get there yet?
No, as I was watching like the first part for the past podcast, it was just like some scene which didn't really need to be there, but they like they did it because um it feels like Endo hates everything he does, but he does
Oh,
it because to survive. And when he sees somebody like Kaiji who is making it with a pure heart, uh, he's gonna cry and it's gonna like he's gonna
yeah. It's
care.
kind of like how. Why couldn't I do that? Why did I have to sink this low? Almost. Huh. Yeah, it does make me wonder if Fukumoto was going to give any more characterization to Endo in part 6 beyond just the I don't know, the brutal loan shark that we kind of know him as. Um
Well, it's kind of like the same thing with Tonegawa, except Tonegawa speaks his mind, so you know what he's like thinking about.
yeah.
But Endo would never have the chance to like lay his own philosophy down because he's just like one of the lowest guys, a lone shark.
Yeah.
But
Have you watched any of Tonegawa? Cuz I know that Endo appears in Tonegawa.
I read Tonegawa for like a few chapters, and then I was like, okay, this is a joke, and then I
Yeah.
stopped.
That's
I
exactly how
stopped.
I felt too. I was just thinking like maybe there's some extra characterization in Tonegawa of Endo that we don't necessarily get in the series. But even if there was, like, it would probably be pretty comical, and it wouldn't be necessarily something a deep insight into his character by any stretch. So yeah,
Mm, oh, I meant like if Fukumoto said that he loved that like one of his favorite characters is Endo, there has to be something behind it.
yeah, you would think so. Yeah, there probably is. It's just, I mean, do we want to talk about part 6 a little bit? Like, while we're, I don't know if we should because like maybe there's people who haven't read it.
Let's ask the listeners, I guess. Let's let
Well, I
like
feel like the listeners on Twitch
discuss.
are probably caught up because like a lot of them probably came from the Discord, like Yarrow and Timbre and all them. Oh, but okay,
I
Yarrow
mean,
has some
I
insight
mean,
here.
we can go into part six, of course. I'm ready.
Okay, I mean, just like briefly touching on it, I guess would be okay. But first of all, Yarrow says, um, Endo and Tonegawa comes up with ridiculous plans to help Tonegawa manage his black suits, like bringing Kaiji's look-alike to lecture them. Okay. Okay, so he tries to help Tonegawa. Yeah, yeah, he's kind of like the lackey almost. And he kind of has like ridiculous plan. Okay, so yeah, there is some good characterization in there. Okay, all right. So I'll just say if you don't want to hear about what happens in part 6, maybe if you're watching this on YouTube or something, like maybe skip ahead a few minutes or something. And I just want to bring this up very briefly. Just the moment, because Endo appears in part 6. Just the moment that Endo tracks down Sakazaki and he's looking for Kaiji. Endo is looking for Kaiji, and he tracks down Sakazaki because he thinks that Kaiji may have gotten a car from him somehow, and he has the audacity to freaking use the bloody manicure on Sakazaki. The same bloody manicure that Ichijou used on Kaiji. He uses it on Sakazaki. And kind of like it looked like he was about to do it, and he kind of like looked like he was enjoying it almost. Like he was like he had this big grin on his face, and he was like, "I don't like doing this, but gotta do what you gotta do." And maybe he didn't necessarily enjoy doing it, but um, that just kind of
Alright,
gave me like it just kind of like turned me off of the character a lot. Like that was kind of like the almost crossing the moral event horizon for Endo's character that I just couldn't really get over. But what do you think
Um,
about it?
Tonegawa is great because, for one reason, he speaks his mind when he's talking the ship, um, telling the people that they suck.
Uh-huh.
They- Another reason, he loses E card, and that takes a lot of will and power to just like put your face on a hot iron plate. I mean,
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, okay, so we're I mean, we were talking about Endo, but um
okay, okay. I because I'm kind of
yeah, you just don't really have any
to talk about that.
response to that really. Yeah, and you don't really want to talk about it.
I do. I just said like a very, very stupid comparison. It's Gurren Lagann. There's issue, and he does stuff which he doesn't like to do, but he feels responsible to do it to
Okay.
for a greater good and to like kind of protect people. And one scene, and if you didn't cry this scene, then you have no emotions and don't even talk to me. He's crying and trying to commit suicide because he feels so bad about all the stuff he did, but he was trying to do the best he can. And then I look at like Endo, and I feel him like hating himself for preying on poor people and this kind of collecting job. And
Mm.
right now, I feel like this is probably the worst comparison ever. And
No, I get what where you're coming from. So this, I haven't seen Gurren Lagann, but the way you're describing it is it's kind of a character that he doesn't like what he's doing, and the fact that he doesn't like what he's doing, even though he's doing it, kind of drives him to this point where he's like, "What point is there even in living anymore? Like, why do um, why should I keep living when um I'm doing such things that I don't that I personally despise on a certain level?" And you might uh, are you saying that you make the connection that like Endo is kind of also that kind of character that he kind of is doing all these nasty things, but deep down inside he doesn't like the fact that he's doing them?
yeah, that was exactly my point. I was just trying to say when I see Endo, I feel like he hates himself for doing what he does, but that's the way he found a way of surviving,
Yeah, getting
living.
through life, yeah, is by being a loan shark and doing whatever it takes to get people to pay their money. It just comes with the territory. Maybe we
Yeah,
don't know
because
why he took that job. We don't know. It could have been out of desperation. It could have just been like, for some reason he had no other path in life and he just like kind of signed up with Tei and they paid him good money. So he was like, as the job went on, he just continued to suppress his humanity and suppress it and until the point where it was kind of like second nature for him. And he kind of was able to just do all these kind of like just backstabby kind of like self-serving like um inhumane things, but at the same time like that was just how he lived and it wasn't really who he was in a way.
yeah, the way I wanted to like talk about Endo is that he's somebody who wishes he was Kaiji,
Mm.
and there are scenes of him crying watching Kaiji win. So
Oh,
you're
really? Okay. So like actually in the anime. Well, oh, wait, no, of course, yeah, like he's there in the audience. For some reason, I was
yeah,
picturing him like watching it on a monitor, but no, yeah, of course, yeah, he was in the audience with Kaiji. Yeah, and he was celebrating with them. Yeah.
and um, the feel I get, and this might be totally wrong. I'm not saying it like a fact. Um, it just feels like he wishes he succeeded in life. Like, okay, Kaiji didn't really succeed, but um, that he found a way in life to live like Kaiji, and that he hates his job, and he hates himself and
Mm,
the things he has to do. Because we come back to capitalism, and managers and Ohtsuki and people like that. They prey on people, but I don't think that they really want to do it. I think they have to do it because the way the world is right now.
yeah. Yeah, it is kind of sad that, you know, you have to sink to that level just in order to make money. And it's not like this is just an anime thing. This is a real life Japan thing because there are so many people who are in debt in Japan that like owe debts to other people just um for, you know, basic things. Like it's a very common thing to just take out debts when you're in financial trouble and you need, you know, the idea is that you're going to like work it off, but you know, it takes so long to do it. And not even just in Japan, but so it is kind of like almost a necessary job, and I'm sure that's how he justifies it in his mind. I'm sure that's how Endo justifies it, is he's like giving people money, and if they can't use it properly, then it's no skin off him to like take it back by force, you know? It's like he's being fair by lending out the money this way. And you know, it's something that people need. So yeah, I mean, I can see like the kind of like rationality that like he could possibly use. It's just that like, you know, it is kind of the kind of job that you do have to sacrifice part of your humanity in order to work. Um and but I would say like he definitely is kind of a villain. You know, you can't look at him and say, "Oh, he's just one of the good guys." Like at this point, you have to say like Endo is definitely like one of the villains of the series. You know, and it's there's just no way around that. You know, even if he does have good intentions deep inside, even if there are like good motivations behind his actions, like you have to look at him and you have to be like, well, he's still doing some really shady stuff, and he's really um doing stuff out of motivation and like just duty to this like corrupt company that he's working for more than anything. So
I'm not like excusing Endo at all.
I know
Um,
you're just trying to see like where he's coming from.
yeah, yeah, because other characters like Tonegawa, Hyoudou, they're just like very straight line. Like I look down upon people, fuck you, and that's what I believe in. Endo is a little bit different because he doesn't like what he does.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um.
for sure. But
uh,
yeah, I mean it is kind of like you were talking about Tonegawa, and I guess the reason that Tonegawa came to your mind is because like correct me if I'm wrong, but like maybe that Endo and Tonegawa are kind of in the same vein, that like they're both like deep down inside like have this kind of like humanity that they're suppressing and this bravery, but at the same time they have to do what they have to do because like that's the only way that they can live, and it's working so well for them, this like being so inhumane and being so um unforgiving of people's like wants and desires and the like. It's just working so well for them in their field of expertise that they have to kind of suppress their humanity a little bit. Would you say that that's kind of like the common thread between Tonaga and Endo, or is there
yeah,
something else
yeah,
there?
Yeah, well, the difference is in the show you see Endo, as I said, he's like drinking alone in his home. He has no family, he has no wife or daughter. He's just like alone. And if you had the money, if you were like Endo, why would you like be so sad alone in your home? In your home, like
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Like,
that's one
why doesn't he have any
part.
drinking buddies to go out with? Is one question.
Yeah,
Why
for
is he drinking
example,
by
that.
himself?
Yeah,
Why isn't
yeah,
he out with his friends?
yeah, exactly. And then you have Tonegawa. Tonegawa is a different beast because he really stays to his like philosophy, and the reason why like respect Tonegawa is he puts his forehead on a hot iron plate. Like,
Yeah,
how can't you respect that?
it does
Like,
take some serious balls to do that for sure. And
yeah,
yeah, but I guess that just shows how deep his loyalty is to Tei in the end. Just the fact that he's willing to like, because Hyodo's demands are kind of unreasonable in a way. It's almost like the reason that he puts his head on that plate in the first place is because Hyodo tells him that the fact that he lost the gamble for something like 20 million yen, which is like nothing to him, but he just sees it as such a disgrace that Tonegawa cheated. He cheated at the game and he still lost, that he needs to bow his head in forgiveness, the like most insane way that Kyoto can possibly imagine. So I feel like
but I don't think he just did it because of AI or Hyodo. I
you
just
don't.
think it was like his own self-respect. Like, I lost, and this is the price I pay.
Mm, I see. So he kind of like, yeah, he had the like feeling of like it's the manly thing to do to accept my defeat and um take this punishment like a man. Um I just have to think like if he could just see out of his current situation, if he could see like how ridiculous Hyodo really is, that would be good. But at the same time, he really can't because like he's in so deep at this point. Like he's the freaking number two of the company. Hey, I number two. that that like he can't do anything else, and he's just so indebted to Tei as a whole that like he just can't back out, and any unreasonable demand that or that Hyodo makes of him, he has to fulfill.
I think the biggest difference between Tonegawa and Endo is because Endo has to do it. He doesn't want to do it, but Tonegawa's own life philosophy lines up with Tei, so he wants to do it.
Mm,
He wants to be number two. He wants to be in Tei. He agrees with Kyoto. Endo doesn't.
mm. Oh. I see. Okay, so you're. Oh, that's a different. Yeah, that's a very different take. Okay, so yeah, so I mean that does make sense. Yeah, Tonegawa actively like. Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right because Tonegawa, lets you know about everything that he believes, and he fully believes in Tei as a company. Like, there's not a shred of doubt in his mind that Tei is in the right in everything it does. Um, So I would say that's yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, Tonegawa like sees it as more of like this is my company. I'm doing the right thing, and the only person that has any authority over me is Hyodo, and Hyodo is mad at me right now because I lost, and I did lose, so I should pay the price. Yeah, you know what? That is a better assessment of Tonegawa's character than what I was saying. That is absolutely a better assessment.
Yeah, and because we talked about Endo, because somebody mentioned that he was the favorite character of Fukumoto, I can relate, and I can see that Fukumoto like put a lot of thought into Endo. Um,
Probably.
I I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Because Yaro just asked, like, if Endo doesn't agree with Tei, why did he take the job of catching Kaiji then? You know, and I wouldn't say that either of us are insinuating that he doesn't believe in Tei in some level. Um, I would say it's kind of like he's so engrossed in Tei's web of influence that he can't really do anything else, and he has to like you know something that I've always thought is that Endo wants to meet Kaiji again face to face. That's something that I've always thought. Like in some regard, I feel like Endo wants to see Kaiji again, just to maybe like settle their dispute or do something, and he wants like he can't afford to let Kaiji run away, right? He can't afford to let Kaiji run away because he still has unfinished business with him or something like that. So I think it is a personal thing with Endo on some level. Um,
Yeah, but um, as I said, I think Endo wishes he was Akagi
oh, he wishes he was Akagi.
because he's crying for him. I mean that's something Tonegawa never like you can't imagine Tonegawa or Hyoudou crying
Do
that
you
Akagi.
mean do you mean he wishes he was Kaiji?
Yeah, I think he
Okay.
was. I think he wishes he was Kaiji, um, because he's rooting for him like all the way. He's rooting for Kaiji. He sees something of himself in Kaiji, and he's a million times more human than Tonegawa or Hyodo or any villain in Kaiji in general.
Hmm.
We're not gonna talk about Kazuya right now
Right,
because
that's
he's
next
kind of
episode.
yeah. Um, but Uh, there's definitely like the only reason we are talking so much about Endo is because one of our viewers mentioned that it's Fukumoto's like favorite character,
Yeah,
and that's why we
and
had.
yeah, and I've seen the very interview where he says that. Yeah, he lists that his like he listed like four of his favorite characters from his works. Like one was Harada from 10, one was Kojiemon from Kurosawa, one was Sakazaki, which Sakazaki's a good guy. But I think yeah, his number one favorite character was Endo. So that is interesting to imagine like why why it is that Fukumoto likes Endo so much. Like what is it about
Yeah,
Endo that speaks to Fukumoto
and
so much?
that's why we had to talk about it, and that's why I'm sorry that I went off with my opinions maybe a little bit too far,
I
but
don't think so.
that's
I think we've continued to talk more and more about it and continued to delve deeper into his character and try and figure out what it is, you know? I think it was perfectly in I think it was constructive. Um
then I'm glad. Then I'm glad. Do you want to talk about the I personally don't want to, but do you want to finish like to talk about the pachinko game?
um I mean, we've really talked about all the characters surrounding it. We've talked about Ichijou, we've talked about Sakazaki, we've talked about Endo. Um I guess the only thing we could really talk about would be the like actual mechanics of it, like how crazy it was that he tipped the whole damn building or something like that. But I mean, that speaks for itself, I
Yeah.
feel like, That kind of speaks for itself, how crazy and genius it was.
Okay.
So I mean, if you don't want to, if you're tired or you don't want to go into it, like that's totally fine because I understand you are like a little under the weather today. So if 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 you don't want to
Yeah.
talk about it,
For
we don't have to.
Yeah, as Sonic said, I'm a little bit sick, but I'm not that sick that I can talk about Kaiji. I can always talk about Kaiji.
Right. I mean,
Um,
you did it for 2 hours straight, so
I just want to like wrap up how the whole arc ends because it's another way of genius like Kaiji outsmarting Ichijou in a way which was again unpredictable. What makes it great?
hmm. What do you mean?
You said changing changing the consistency of the earth below the building.
Right. Yeah.
Come on, it's something
It is insane,
you
yeah.
could
And
have never thought of.
yeah, and there were just
Yeah.
so many back and forths that whole game. It really came down to endurance in the end, though. It really came down to just like how much money Kaiji was willing to put into the machine to eventually hit that major jackpot. um and it was brilliant the way he did it, but like I said, it was less a mind game type of thing. It was more of a bank heist, you know. It was more of a like how do we get into this safe and crack it and get all the money, you know? Like what mechanics about it can we use? Um and I mean, I like I said, I think it kind of speaks for itself. But you were talking about like wrapping up by talking about the ending, right? Um, and I feel like we do have to say something about the ending because it is really heartwarming, um, but also kind of cathartic if you know what happens next. um, just the fact that Kaiji. First of all, he
Um.
gets. Well, do you have anything to say first of all about it, or do you want to go somewhere
Yeah,
else?
because you asked if I remember correctly, you wanted to translate this interview,
Oh
Sonic.
yeah. Um yeah, I did say that. And I do want to do it. It's just that I'm so busy and I'm working on so many series at the moment that I just don't really have like if I ever get some free time, like I'll definitely like thank you for reminding me for sure because it is something that I do want to translate cuz it is really eye-opening and insightful. Um so I probably will someday. Just keep reminding me and I'll eventually get around to it. um
All right, before we wrap it up, because it's been like 2.5 hours.
yeah.
Um, Ichijou.
Ichijou.
Yeah,
What about him?
let's compare the way Kaiji and Ichijou are facing off. Um, before before we wrap it up, I think it would tie in nicely with the talk about Endo and Tonegawa. Ichijou is
I guess
obviously
we didn't
different.
really, yeah, we didn't really go into like, well, I guess we kind of did a little bit. Like we talked about how Ichijou is kind of like motivated by wanting to rise up in the company and kind of wanting to do whatever it takes. It is kind of similar to Endo's motivation, but also different because he's looking to not only rise up in the company, but potentially like rise up so far that he will eventually be there when Hyoudou, passes on, and then he'll inherit his freaking position. Like that's Ichijou's ultimate goal. But I would say that that's very overly optimistic because Hyodo himself said that the only reason that he's able to be king is because there are so many people under him that also want to be king. So Hyodo also knows this. He knows that like people are out there that want to take his position. He knows that people are out there. So I feel like Ichijo is kind of like he has this dream, this ambition, but um I feel, and it is sad that he's really realistically he probably wouldn't even get there even if he had beat Kaiji. He probably would never get there even in a million years because there's just too many obstacles in his way. Um, so I don't necessarily. I feel like Ichijou was kind of like a kind of minor antagonist that kind of just served to be the voice of the bog almost to kind of be like they're just kind of opposing Kaiji. He was definitely an interesting villain and a fun villain. Just his like constant mocking of Kaiji and his constant like belittling of everything he did, but and you do understand where he's coming from, but as far as his motivations go, um, I don't necessarily feel like they're tremendously special. I'm just being perfectly honest. Like I don't feel like they're um like I do want to see him again, you know, and see how much he's changed and see if his outlook on life has changed because I guess rather than his motivations not being special, I would say that they're just really unrealistic and that like he would probably never achieve them. And like I would want to see him again to see if he's like changed his outlook on life and if he has found a different kind of meaning in his life besides just wanting to freaking become king, you know. I would want to see if he's freaking his time underground has taught him anything about like what it really means to uh like just be alive and have like um just to enjoy life rather than constantly working striving towards something that is really unrealistic to achieve.
Yeah, Ichijou is kind of different because he's responsible for an enterprise for the gambling place. I don't know how to say that. Um, he's responsible for it, so he's acting a little bit more like professional, kindly with all of his like employees, with all of his like enemies. Um, and that's different with like Endo or Tonegawa because they're just doing what they do because that's where they are.
Right.
They have to like do the dirty job, while Ichijo is pretending to be like a very well established gambling
Yeah.
place. It isn't. So he's acting a lot different, and that's what I liked about him.
Yeah, he's kind of wrapped up in his own almost delusions of grandeur. These kind of like he thinks he's like way more valued than he actually is, you know. And it's just really his sphere of influence is just over that casino, but he thinks that there's just he's doing such a good job that there's chance for him to do something more, which is exactly what Hyodo was talking about when he said that there are people out there that want to become king, and it's because they want to become king that I am allowed to be the king because they keep bowing to me in hopes that I will relinquish my position. You know, it's what supports him, and Ichijo is a prime example of that kind of character.
and that's why I like Ichijo because he's different from the other villains because the other villains get the whole picture what's happening behind of everything.
Yeah.
Ichijo kind of seems like naive in a way.
Yeah, he's kind of just like a normal guy who's just he has like kind of a his foot in the door of Tei, and he's like, "Oh, if I can just freaking like pry open this door, I'll have all the wealth and riches that I ever want." But, you know, even if he does pry open that door, all that waits for him is like another door, and then another door after that, and then doors upon doors until he eventually, like, you know, it, it's just so. Like, he just really doesn't even understand where he is in the system. Oh, Tamper says he wants to show his friends? You mean like show up his friends?
I was reading that as well.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
also
like his
wants to
friends kind of
show
made fun
his
of him for his
friends.
casino job and he deep down inside he wants to like he has this dream of like
Oh
I
yeah,
want to
that episode. There's that episode where they like belittle him.
right. Yeah. Yeah, they just I don't remember all the details exactly, but it's something like they kind of like they just like make fun of him for, oh geez, I don't remember it all. I'm sorry, I don't remember it all, but it's
Yeah,
like,
I just remember like he was like sitting around with his friends, and they were like making fun of him. Um, Definitely, that's another part of his character.
yeah, it's kind of like he goes behind their back and like, I remember he like called someone or was he was like calling like his boss to be like, oh, like I got my next promotion or something. I don't know. I like at some for some reason I picture like Ichijou like in the bathroom on his cell phone saying something to Tei. Yeah, what Tamper? Maybe Tamper remembers. He left his phone on speaker and left it in the bag. I see. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He had his
Now I remember it was Ichijou wanted to succeed among his friends, and didn't find like a proper like way to do it in the standard way of like companies and stuff. So he wanted to do it with Tei,
yeah.
and and he was so like focused on every single detail and um everything about the casino and stuff, and that's why it felt so great when Kaji owned him.
Right. Yeah, because he was such an arrogant kind of individual who thought more highly of himself than he had any right to. And he kind of like he kind of almost the act of like putting your phone in your bag and like leaving it there and listening to what people are talking about behind your back is kind of almost like, how do I put it? It's like kind of just like trying to, I don't know. It's kind of like if they had a serious problem with you, they would say it to your face, right? So why does it even matter what they're saying behind your back, really? It's kind of almost like looking for trouble, I would say. It's kind of almost like
I
trying to find
I
trouble, like when it's like if they really
it,
thought so little of you, they would probably say it. But by putting the phone in his bag and listening to their conversations, he's kind of like he almost wants to know how little they think of him. And it's almost kind of I want to say like masochistic in a kind of way, just like this kind of feeling of like just I want to know what they really think so that I have every right to be like righteously angry at them, you know. So it and you know that's a real thing that people are like in real life, you know. It's not just Ichijou. There are people like that, you know. But I just feel like
I disagree because I
you
don't see
disagree.
anything wrong. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with what Ichijo does. It's completely fine to be curious what your coworkers think about you.
Mm. Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just have a different
He he wants to climb.
perspective.
He wants to climb the ladder of
Right. Okay,
every
okay, so
company.
sure. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like he wants to know like what people actually think of him, so perhaps well, I would say like it would be one thing if he wanted to know because he wanted to change something about himself. Like that would be fine. Um if he wanted to know what people thought of him so he could be like, oh, okay, so I'll change this about myself and I'll make myself better based on the feedback that I heard from them. But it kind of seems more like like Tamber said, like he's very vain, like he's always trying to just like, oh, these peons don't think highly of me. Well, I'll show them. I'll show them who's like not uh who's not worth being around or whatever it was they said. Um so I don't know. Like you can say whatever you want about him. Like you can think any way you want about him. I'd still like him as a character. I think he's a very good antagonist for sure. Um, but I
Well,
do feel like
oh,
that kind of speaks to his character.
yeah, yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. It's just like he's just another character trying to make in a different way.
Sure.
He wants to make it. Endo wants to make it. Tonegawa wants to make it. Kaiji wants to make it, of course, and it's just a different way of trying to make it. A completely different way,
Yeah.
where he's like caring about his looks, and he's like focusing so much on the corporate ladder that it's still relatable.
It's still yeah, it is relatable. You can put yourself in his shoes and you can be like, you know, like I do remember like when I watched that the first time I was like that's a totally like I totally understand that dream, and I understand the dream of wanting to get to the top and like do that. It's just when I think about it now from an outside perspective, knowing how Hyodo is, I'm like he was kind of in the forest and he couldn't see the forest for the trees, and he was just like he was thinking that he had more of a chance than he really had, in the end. But he thought so highly of himself that he was like, I'm a genius. I can make anything happen, you know. So he's that kind of character. But thanks
He
Tamber
really
and
can
Yaro
be.
for helping us remember that scene. Like it's very
Yeah,
nice that,
thanks.
we have
Um,
people that remember it and we can interact with the chat and they can help us out with it cuz like I did not remember that scene whatsoever.
Thanks a lot, Yado and Tumber.
Yeah.
I just want to that like, is he really like what did you say about him like that? You just said something about Ichijou, which I wanted to like ask you about, but I can't remember.
I don't remember either. uh well, I don't yeah, I can't I said a lot, so I can't really pick out any one thing that might have like spoken to you. Um But I don't know. We were trying to wrap this up anyway, so it's like, and we it definitely was good that we talked more about Ichijou because we didn't really get a chance to talk about Ichijou. We just kind of skipped over him. But the fact that we really kind of laid out our opinions on that character was definitely productive and good.
Yeah,
But
I
definitely
think
let me
we had
know if
some.
that what you were gonna ask me about comes to mind.
No, no, no. We agreed on Ichijou. I was just like trying to compare him like to other characters and saying like he is kind of nice in the way he's like screwing up people.
Nice. Well, yeah, he's got a little bit of Ohtsuki in him. He's like, smiling at people as he freaking, I don't know, tortures them or whatever. It's like, he's got a little bit of that.
He has some style. He has some elegance.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, all
So
right. You didn't believe that this podcast would be almost 3 hours, but it ended up like it. So as I said, we have
yeah, I mean,
so
I
much.
I honestly didn't think we would be able to talk for 2.5 hours about just part two, but we did. That's all we talked about for 2.5 hours. I don't know. I mean,
Kaiji
it's
is
really good
great.
that we were able to. I'm really happy with it. You know.
Yeah,
So
and that's because it's Kaiji. It's
yeah,
so
there's
great.
just so much to talk about, and it's so you can relate so much of it to real life. So it's very good to break it down. Did you want to talk about anything about the ending of part two?
Um,
Like specifically the part where Kaiji like gets money from the black suit, and how touching that was, or anything like that.
I didn't I didn't get to that part, but I would like to hear your opinion about it.
Okay. I mean, a lot of people do definitely resonate with that part for sure. It definitely does. I think what's so great about it is the fact that even a Tei member, even just a random black suit, someone just that's just one of many in the great Tei universe, just someone who's so wrapped up in that world can still show compassion on Kaiji when he wasted all of his money gambling. He just wants to have fun with his friends. The black suit sees that. He's like, you know what? I might be part of Tei, but I see that you're down in the dumps. I'm gonna give you some money. Go have fun. You know, that's really heartwarming. It shows that like the world, like as much as Kaiji the series paints the world as this like dark, bleak place full of like psychopaths and backstabbers and all this, like there's still people out there that are just like you just want to have a good time. You don't have any money. You just earn this. Here, let me give you some money. Like it definitely does like end it on a very positive note. Just like there's still hope for humanity. Not everybody's bad. You know, there's still like people out there that care for one another. And I would say that there's a lot of people that care about one another. Like Kaiji as a series points out like the dangerous people in humanity. And it's important to notice those too, but it's also important to realize that, you know, not everybody's like that. There are good people out there, and I would say that that's a very heartwarming showcase of a moment like that. That's what I think.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very heartwarming
Yeah.
message for the end. Can I ask um if somebody watching our Twitch has any questions or any suggestions right now before we end it?
Any suggestions?
Just like if they have something to say because we're still unsure about the show.
Oh,
We're not too
well,
sure.
okay. I'll just tell you like live on air that I think this was a really good show. I think we really, yeah, I genuinely feel really good about this show, and I think we did a great job. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
Yep. See.
because it's about Kaiji because it's something we can really talk about, not like
Yeah. That's
the
another thing
last
too. Yeah.
episode.
If this was about a show that I hadn't really watched too much and I hadn't really thought about, like I wouldn't have as much to say, but yeah, I feel like this is, you know, like Kaiji especially is something that I've dedicated a huge chunk of my life to doing. So, I mean, you know, I feel like the things we said kind of you know, there was meaning in it at the very least. So,
Yeah, there was a lot of like personal stuff involved, and I enjoyed this episode a lot. Honestly, a lot.
me too.
Almost the same as the first episode.
Yeah. I feel like the Squid Game episode might have been a bad idea because we just kind of like we wound up kind of just saying like, you know, it's not as bad as, you know, as everyone thinking, but we still had nothing like really good to say about it that wasn't already part of Kaiji. So it was kind of like we were just kind of like saying, you know, Squid Game's not that bad, but at the same time it was like what do we really have to say about it? I don't know. We just kind of went around in circles a lot. But this oh, oh wow, you almost cried when I did that? Oh wow. Oh, that means so much to me that you know, I was able to invoke that memory with you.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh
That's
wow.
nice.
Thank you for saying that, man. That means a lot. Okay, yeah, cuz I kind of felt like last episode we didn't really I kind of felt like last episode wasn't our best, but the fact that you got that out of it, yeah, that really means a lot to me. So thank you for saying that, Yaro. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, it's very true. I also feel that we had some really nice moments in the last episode.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't a bad episode by any means. I don't know. There was just kind of like how do I even describe it? Just like kind of like a I don't know. It was probably just because we had such a great first episode, and not great in terms of like I would say great in terms of like there were lots of people interested in it, and like we were talking about interesting stuff. And then episode two, it was like we just kind of like it was kind of improvised. Like you watched the series like 2 days before, you hadn't really had a chance to think about it, and I really didn't necessarily care too much about Squid Game either, so like it might have been like ill advised or something, but I feel like you know it whatever it's good. We're doing good, and I feel like that's my feeling.
We're doing it.
We're doing it. Yes, we are doing it. We're
So,
making it happen.
very shortly, what are we gonna talk about in the next episode?
Part 3 and on, unless you want me to watch Akira.
Akira. After we finish with Kaiji.
Okay. I'm cool with that. Yeah, because I have a lot to say about Kazuya. I like if you thought my breakdown of Ichijou or I don't know Sakazaki was interesting, I have a lot to say about Kazuya. We could probably fill up an entire episode just about Kazuya, and there's also other characters like Muraoka, like Chang and Mario, all of them that we can talk about too. So I think that's enough fodder for another week of talking about Kaiji. So.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask because I don't remember. Is there enough material to talk about in part three, or should we like connect it with
I would
part
say
four?
so. Episode 1 was Mokushiroku Kaiji. Episode 2 was Hakairoku, and now episode 3 I think should be just all of Datenroku. Right? That makes sense, right? Like because part 3 through 6 is all Tobaku Datenroku Kaiji, like Kazuya Hen, One Poker Hen, 2.4 billion escape hen. So I think we should just make the next episode just all of Datenroku Kaiji put together. What do you think about that?
Okay, I agree. Yeah.
Yep. Sounds like a plan.
So, guys, not just on Twitch, on YouTube as well. Thank you a lot listening to us. We are still experimenting and we are
Yeah.
still like unsure about the show. I just want to say thank you a lot. Thank you a lot for listening to us, and we are gonna keep doing it. And see you next week. That's all I can say.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, we definitely are experimenting with it and trying to see like what good topics are to talk about and like what resonates with people. So any feedback that you have to give is like just wonderful and it tells us more about what we need to uh what we need to talk about in the future. So yeah, but yeah, like Rinshan said, thank you so much for listening to us ramble about uh, about Kaiji because I mean, there's a lot to ramble about, but thanks to everybody who's stuck through it and listened, because it means a lot just knowing that people just enjoyed it. Just even that is just really wonderful to know.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Thanks, Sonic. Everybody, have a good night. Um, and that's it. We're signing off. See you next week on Saturday, same time. Manga Bums. Please come back.
Same Fukumoto time, same Fukumoto place. All right, catch y'all later. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. Bow wow.